Continue about today. Congratulations at NYU check. Give us a little space. Give us a little space. Give us a little space. Golden Nation.
Imagine being a teenager, quietly seated in a courtroom filled with cameras, attorneys, and unfamiliar observers, only to hear strangers describe your father in ways that feel completely foreign. That's what Diddy's daughters were reportedly up against last week. As witness statements and legal arguments unfolded, the music figure allegedly stayed composed, even gesturing warmly toward them, blowing kisses from across the room. The moment wasn't just uncomfortable, it was deeply surreal. According to insiders, this wasn't simply about public embarrassment. It was a life-altering realization that may have changed the way they viewed their own family. Their sudden exit from the courtroom, sources say, wasn't driven by a desire to escape media attention. Stemmed from hearing testimony so intense and so close to home that remaining in their seats felt impossible. This trial has shifted far past fame or online chatter. What's happening inside those walls is being described as a pivotal moment, pulling back the curtain on a side of the entertainment world rarely seen. These daughters aren't just observers in a high-profile case. They're caught in a heartbreaking moment of family history unfolding in real time. And if those with first-hand knowledge are right, what the public has witnessed so far barely begins to reveal the full picture. Let's break down what really happened, and why many believe this is just the start of something even bigger. Cassie Ventura entered the courtroom with a quiet dignity that immediately commanded attention. Expecting a child and composed beyond words, she moved with a calm that silenced the room. Her reputation had long been that of Diddy's longtime companion, his muse, the woman beside him at high-profile events and music award shows. But once she took the stand, she revealed an entirely different chapter of her life, one marked by years of isolation, control, and deeply unsettling experiences. Cassie testified that what the public saw was only a fraction of her reality. She described more than a decade of life spent under a shadow of intense supervision. Her account included extended, carefully orchestrated scenarios where she said she was left alone in hotel rooms with unfamiliar people, incidents she claimed were supervised and structured by Diddy with a precision that mirrored a movie production. According to her, these moments weren't stories or speculation, they were captured on film. Even more upsetting was what she claimed happened when she tried to resist. She spoke of being met with immediate, aggressive consequences, situations involving emotional coercion, broken items, and intimidating behavior. Those in the courtroom were visibly shaken. Perhaps most heartbreaking of all, reports say Diddy's teenage daughters were seated just feet away, forced to hear every detail. One juror reportedly clutched their chest in discomfort, another appeared to lose composure entirely. The atmosphere became so tense, even breathing seemed difficult. Throughout it all, Cassie remained composed. Her voice stayed steady, her expression resolute, like someone who had waited a long time for the moment to finally tell her truth, uninterrupted and unfiltered. But what truly shifted the energy in the room wasn't just her account. It was the reactions of those listening, especially from individuals closest to the figure at the center of this case, who appeared visibly changed as long-concealed truths came into the light. Imagine 3 teenage girls, barely entering adulthood, sitting quietly side by side in a packed courtroom. Although cameras weren't rolling, every person present was focused on them. They hadn't come as official witnesses, nor was their presence voluntary. They were there because the man facing trial, the center of a swirling media storm, was their father. And the things they heard that day? No child should ever be burdened with such revelations. As the testimony progressed, the stories grew more disturbing. Details emerged that left even seasoned journalists shocked. Accounts involving strange habits, obsessive behaviors, and unsettling control measures that crossed boundaries. One recurring theme was baby oil. Another witness spoke of intense monitoring, fixations on appearances, and even an inappropriate fascination with individuals much younger than expected. Shockingly, some described as classmates. Those observing noted the visible impact on the daughters. One was trembling visibly. Another turned pale, her face frozen as if her entire understanding of her world was crumbling. The third sat stiffly, staring ahead with a blank expression, as if she was grappling with a hidden truth she had never confronted before. Then the mood shifted dramatically. A male witness, previously unknown to the public, took the stand. According to reports from inside the courtroom, he described a disturbing pattern of orchestrated events, private meetings marked by strange rituals and unsettling regularity. He spoke in a calm, measured tone, but as his testimony unfolded, the atmosphere changed. Witnesses say that during his statements, one of the daughters visibly recoiled, especially after he mentioned a particular name. Insiders say this name belonged to someone they knew personally, someone connected to their everyday life, perhaps even someone from their school circle. That moment was the breaking point. All three girls reportedly stood and left the courtroom, unable or unwilling to endure any more of the testimony. Chaos erupted, and the judge called for an immediate recess. Social media users quickly reacted with outrage. Why were those girls made to sit through that? Who allowed this to happen? But for those inside that courtroom, the harm was already done, and nothing would ever be the same again. Let us introduce a witness who quickly became one of the most talked about figures in this trial, Daniel Phillip. He's not some tabloid rumor or anonymous social media claim. Daniel is a professional adult entertainer who appeared in court armed with documented proof, payment records, and detailed accounts that had everyone in the room holding their breath. Daniel testified that he wasn't simply invited to private gatherings. He was allegedly hired directly by Diddy and paid thousands of dollars for very specific performances. But these encounters were far from casual or spontaneous. Daniel described them as carefully choreographed events, almost like a film director orchestrating every move. There were strict guidelines in place. For example, the placement of baby oil bottles followed an exact pattern, 2 full bottles arranged on one side and a half-used bottle positioned somewhere else. Everything was carefully planned down to the smallest detail. According to Daniel, Diddy frequently observed from the sidelines, sometimes pacing back and forth, other times offering what Daniel called creative direction. Times he even reportedly took part himself, according to Daniel's sworn statement. But the moment that truly stunned the courtroom came when Daniel's voice wavered as he described a particularly distressing moment. He claimed that during these staged scenes, Cassie, clearly upset, wanted to stop, yet instead of halting, Daniel said he was instructed to continue. In his words, "I was told not to stop." Courtroom fell completely silent. The shifting of seats could be heard clearly. One woman in the audience reportedly bowed her head and didn't lift it again for the remainder of the day. Jurors exchanged tense glances, their faces revealing the weight of the moment, though their expressions remained unreadable. And just when it seemed like the emotional intensity had peaked, Cassie returned to the witness stand, calm, composed, and devastatingly honest. What she shared next did more than confirm Daniel's account. It suggested these occurrences were not isolated incidents. Instead, Cassie testified that this behavior was part of a much larger, troubling pattern, a dark legacy stretching well beyond their personal relationship. She hinted that others involved have yet to come forward. And the most important point? This is only the start of what promises to be a much deeper and more revealing story. What's happening in this courtroom goes far beyond one woman's difficult story. It's evolving into a wider moment of reckoning. The shadow hanging over this case extends well past Cassie Ventura. It now reaches back to another key figure whose story remains incomplete, Kim Porter. Kim was more than just a partner. She was Diddy's longtime companion, the mother of 3 of his children, and someone who understood him on a level few others did. In 2018, she passed away suddenly at just 47 years old. The official cause was pneumonia. There was no criminal inquiry, no follow-up investigation, only sorrow, quiet mourning, and an outpouring of condolences. Yet for those close to her, something about her death never quite added up. Whispers among insiders suggest that Kim was secretly working on a project, a memoir. Not just any memoir, but an uncensored, revealing account that could be dangerous to those involved. According to those who claim to have seen early versions, the manuscript was more than a simple recollection. It was a warning. It reportedly exposed the darker corners of her former partner's life, filled with stories, names, and dates. She was preparing to bring these truths into the light. But after her death, that manuscript disappeared without a trace. Adding to the unease, voices within Kim's inner circle have begun to draw unsettling parallels between her passing and another well-known Hollywood loss, Brittany Murphy. Both women were strong and outspoken. Both were reportedly investigating uncomfortable truths. And both officially died from pneumonia. Coincidence? Or is there something far more troubling lurking beneath the surface? Tensions in the courtroom rose when a new witness took the stand, claiming that Kim was not only aware of what Cassie experienced, but she also knew about the now widely discussed sessions central to the trial. True, this knowledge could have made her a risk to those involved. Just when the trial seemed to reach new heights of intensity, it took an even more shocking turn, one that struck right at the core of the family's public image. The upcoming testimonies didn't just challenge Diddy's reputation, they threatened to alter the way the entire family's story is understood by the public. This case has grown far beyond a single trial. It is now a comprehensive reevaluation of a legacy built by one man, and the women whose revelations could change everything. Confidential documents that were supposed to remain protected under legal confidentiality somehow found their way into the public domain. With this unexpected leak came a rumor so explosive it sent shockwaves rippling through the courtroom and across social media platforms. The claim that Sean Diddy Combs might not be the biological father of all the children he has long introduced to the world as his own. This revelation, if it were to be confirmed, could disrupt not only private family ties but also the carefully crafted public image he has maintained for decades. As is often the case in situations like this, fans, investigators, and internet users sprang into action. They began analyzing old family photos, conducting side-by-side comparisons, and flooding online forums and chat groups with their findings. One viral post bluntly questioned, "How does your kid look more like your best friend than you?" The identity of this so-called best friend hasn't been officially named in court, but those close to the family claim that Kim Porter, Diddy's longtime partner and mother of 3 of his children, was aware of the truth. According to insiders, before her unexpected passing, she was reportedly preparing to reveal these details publicly. Sources familiar with the case say this information was the hardest blow for Diddy's daughters. Witnesses in the courtroom described the moment the rumor surfaced as one of complete emotional breakdown. One daughter was seen clutching her sister's hand so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Another bowed her head and softly murmured, "No way!" These reactions were not simply about shock or embarrassment, they appeared to be the raw, painful responses of young women grappling with the sudden shattering of their family's reality. Since that day, their behavior has quietly spoken volumes. Instagram posts with vague and cryptic captions such as, "Things aren't always as they seem," started appearing. Photos from prom showed smiles that felt forced rather than heartfelt. There have been no interviews or public statements, only silence and carefully crafted social media images that seem more like attempts at damage control than celebrations. Unsurprisingly, Diddy's legal team acted quickly to respond. However, their approach didn't have the intended effect. In fact, sources within the courtroom suggest their defense strategy backfired dramatically. Rather than calming the situation, it fueled further speculation. Their aggressive responses appeared more like signs of alarm than assurance, and those present in court took notice. What was intended to be a strong legal defense instead turned into a public spectacle. For the Combs family, the repercussions are far from over. This is just the beginning of what could be a long and difficult fallout. Diddy's legal team argued that he was being unfairly targeted simply because he is a prominent black man within a system they described as prejudiced. They labeled the Mann Act, a law designed to address trafficking, as outdated and biased against him. But the jury didn't seem convinced by this defense. Public reaction was swift and intense. Since when does race justify harm? Even many of Diddy's own supporters felt uneasy. No courtroom argument could erase the video evidence, the testimony, or the image of his daughters walking out in distress. By the close of the first day, one thing stood out clearly. Diddy isn't just fighting to clear his name. He's battling to save a reputation that may already be damaged beyond repair. His daughters, meanwhile, seem to be trying to piece together a life they thought they understood. So here's the question. Was bringing them to court an act of courage or something harsher? Could you handle sitting through all of this? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And be sure to stay tuned, because the next witness is set to reveal recordings that might bring this whole empire crashing down. Don't forget to subscribe. This story is far from finished.